Good morning, everyone. So happy to have you here today for such an important topic on all good things. This is all about educating you when it comes to some of the mental health struggles lots of young people are experiencing, whether it's your young kids, your teens. What we're seeing is a mental health crisis when it comes to all of the things that they have had to deal with in this pandemic. As you know, what I like to focus on here are solutions. So I am so happy to have Regine Muradian join me now. She's a clinical psychologist, and she has talked at length about what it is that we can do for our children in these difficult times. I'm all about solutions because even though they are struggling, it is up to us as parents to give them all the resources that they can possibly have to be successful and to understand the benefit that can come from this. Dr. Muradian, so good to see you.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so thrilled to have you, one, talking about this important topic, but also how wonderful it is to connect with people in different ways just through Instagram. You DM'd me.
Yes.
And we've never met. I've never done a segment with you. And I just, you believe in what we're trying to do here, which is just educate people. And that's just the power of social media in a positive way. So thank you for reaching out. Let's just start with the teens and what you've seen specifically in their mental health struggles, because there's a study that you've talked at length about some of the staggering numbers and increases when it comes to teens asking for help.
Yes, I mean, it's a incredible study. There were about, I mean, the numbers were just so shocking. I think it was like 333% in terms of mental health. It was a study by an insurance company. Well, they were just studying insurance claims and how mental health has increased since last January. We've certainly seen, I don't know if you heard in Las Vegas, there was, and I don't quote me on this, but about maybe 18 plus suicides in teens, and the youngest being 9-year-old. So certainly a big mental health crisis that we're seeing in our kids, and usually it's COVID isolation, right? So parents will identify it as, my kid was so isolated and withdrawn. And I mean, there was a lot of horrific stories that we're hearing. So just like you, I'm all about solutions, right? And during this pandemic, now that we're rolling out and kids are going back to school, I feel we're going to see a whole different wave of post-COVID blues, post-COVID stressors.
Right. You would actually think it would be the opposite, because you would think getting back in school, getting back with their friends would help them in that way. Why do you think that it might actually be the reverse?
I think for some, when I talk about how kids have been impacted through distance learning, you have on one hand kids who've really love this. They thrived in this environment, and especially kids who are more socially anxious or more of the socially isolated kids who have social anxiety. And then you had the other side, which was, oh my gosh, I can't stand looking at a screen. This is driving me nuts. So you've really seen the gamut of feedback. So the kids, I think, who are really going to struggle, but this is what I've been hearing too, is, well, I'm not sure how we're going back. It's not going to be the same. I don't really want to wear the mask. I mean, I'm a mom of 3. I've certainly heard my kiddos say that. And I don't know if you've seen how they're going back to it, the screens around the table, the masks, being told, you can't play this, you can't play that, you got to stay at a distance. So I feel that, I mean, look, I'm very positive, and I feel that the way we came into this, it was a 3-month adjustment, so to speak, for kids adjusting to distance learning. I think, Lynn, it's going to be the same thing coming back into it. So it's just them adjusting. Kids are resilient.
Yeah, they really are, but they do need our help in how to navigate some of those feelings, because that's the thing. They have these feelings that they've never had before.
Yes.
It's really striking to me when I think about this week, because this week's sort of the last normal week that we have ever had a year ago today. Everything really changed March 16th and 17th for everyone. And I bet there are a lot of kids that are marking this anniversary of 1 year ago, I was living a life that I didn't know was about to end. In the way that I know it. So that might be an interesting conversation to have with your children also.
Yes, I'm really big on conversations, and I think that, what this reminds me of. I don't know if you remember when your kiddos were really small. How old are your kids?
So 5 and 2, they're still really
Oh,
little.
5 and 2.
Yeah, so I'm dealing with a
Yes.
whole different set of
Okay,
conversations.
okay. I have the perfect example because it's just something that I went through as a mom at the beginning. Do you remember when you were going into the market and your kids would have like a tantrum because they would want to buy everything and I want this and I want that. So a lot of times like parents would ask me, well, how do I prevent that tantrum? Because I want to get through my day. And you'll see how I'll connect this to going back. And I would tell parents, well, look, before you get in, you're in your car, tell your child that I'm only going in for milk and eggs. That's it. And if you whine, if you scream, we're just going to leave. And I've told parents, just leave. I mean, I've certainly left the cart in the market, came back
Yep.
home. I did it. And it's hard for us, right? Because now we have to go back later on and do our chores or our groceries. But it's all about the lesson that they learned is that, you're consistent, you're providing structure. And when you say something, you really mean it. And kids need that. Now, it's the same thing with this. We have to prepare them on what it's going to look like going back. So just having those conversations. How did you feel pre-pandemic? Do you remember as a mom, as a child, running out of the house, getting their lunch ready, snacks, driving? I mean, I just remember this go, go, go feel, right? Have you ever called yourself like an Uber driver? I feel like I'm in the car half the time.
All day long. That's right.
Right? And just explain to them so they can kind of reminisce what it was like and then what it's going to look like now, because it is going to be different. I think psychologically, they're probably thinking, oh, I'm going back to school. Everything is going to look the same. But in reality, everything is going to look very different.
And early on in the pandemic, when I was reporting on this, I wrote a piece for CNN.com, an op-ed about how this actually might be a gift for our children. This might be a way for helicopter parents to no longer have the ability to make everything work out for their kids. And it teaches them disappointment, and that sometimes disappointment can make you even stronger. And that sometimes, getting your feelings hurt or not being able to have everything you want, it just teaches you about life. And I really almost hoped this pandemic would be something that could be a positive lesson for our kids, but just marking that study that you talked about, it hasn't necessarily clicked for them. And they're young. They don't know yet that this could be a great life lesson, but the fair health, that's the study. And I just want to,
Yes.
some of these numbers, you talked about the 333% increase in
Yes.
self-harm claim lines, also 95% increase in overdoses, depressive disorder claim lines, 84%, anxiety claim lines, 94%. I mean, it's off the charts for these kids, the anxiety, depression, and isolation that they feel. So
Yeah.
how is it that we as parents can maybe give them some life skills here that they could possibly use when they're older, because this isn't the first time they're going to be disappointed. This isn't the first time that life's going to be hard.
Yeah, and you would think, just logically, we would think that, well, if we're all home together as parents, this is a time of bonding. This is a time of connecting. We're not going to be here again. We're not going to have this happen again, right? Let's hope. Let's hope we don't have another pandemic. But just reflecting back on all the positives. When I think about these numbers, it makes me think of the child who's probably closed off in their room the entire day. There's something else I posted on my Instagram yesterday about a journalist who did an incredible interview with several teens and their experience of all of this. And if you look at the video, it's a 3-minute video, so beautifully done. All they're saying is, I'm so tired. I'm tired of the screen. I miss my friends. I miss think about the middle schoolers, the high schoolers, even the little ones, right? The events that we're missing. So I think all of that takes a huge toll. Now, that in itself has increased their anxiety level because they're not used to all this change. And kids think that things stay the same. They don't really think about, this is going to pass. And, I see light at the end of the tunnel like we do as adults. So I think that's an important conversation to have with them is that, yes, we're here, but let's really think about all the good things that we were able to do together. Let's just think of some positives. I know that you're so stuck in that negative. I know you feel so down. I know you miss your friends, but even jotting down, we do a big practice of writing one grateful thing each day. I'm sure you've seen these around. I've seen parents put them in little jars. You have it in the kitchen, or you have a positive quote on the wall. I mean, whatever it is, because at the end of the day, it's all our energy as parents. If you come in the house and you're upset and angry and anxious, what's going to happen to your kid? They're going to feel angry and anxious. So I guess, Lynn, to answer your question, we go back to conversation and really telling them what to expect. And that, what, sometimes as parents, Lynn, we don't know either.
We've never been through a pandemic. I mean,
No.
we're dealing with our own worries and stress and all of that.
Yes, exactly. So a lot of times it's okay to say, you know what, I don't know. I'll get back to you on that. Let's figure it out together. And I think with anxiety, I always say, I tell my clients and people, just around me, it's all about control. So when a child or a teen or even an adult doesn't feel in control of a situation, they tend to become more anxious. And anxiety is just a response to that lack of control.
I think that's such a good point, because I noticed that in my 5-year-old, and I see him getting so frustrated, and he's just like, ugh, and it's not because he wants to get his way. He wants control of the situation. It's just human instinct. And it's almost like, what are some things we can say to them where they don't always get their way, but they get some of the control back? And it almost goes to Vino's question here, who says he has a 4-year-old who's kind of the boss of the situation. How do you make a hyper kid understand this new normal? So for the younger children out there, how do you help them understand that, okay, maybe there are some things you can have control over, and there are some things that we don't have control over?
Yes. I love with the little guys, because, there's a lot of easy, quick tools you can do as a parent. So first of all, I applaud always all parents for noticing. That's the big first thing. You just noticed the behavior, and you said something really important. I know he's not trying to get his way. You're already going into the mental health piece where you're understanding how he's feeling. So with that age, I love to get on the floor with them and saying something like, I could see you are frustrated. Speak to the emotion, not like, oh, you're being bad, or you're not doing this correctly. Really give them, I call them the fresh chips, right? Don't give them soggy chips. Soggy chips is like negative attention. Give them positive chips, which is positive attention. I always say, when if you have a choice in a pantry, fresh chips or soggy chips, a kid will go for the fresh chips. So fresh chips are like the positive attention. So this is the same thing. So you get on the floor with them and you say, I'm really noticing you're feeling frustrated. And I love drawing at that age, and just you just come prepared with a piece of paper and some crayons, and let's write these big feelings on paper and what these feelings feel like. No, I don't want to do that right now. Or they just throw another tantrum and throw it across the room. That could happen. Okay, mommy's going to check in with you in a little bit, and we'll come back, and let me know when you want me to come back. So again, that gives them some form of control.
My mom gave me that advice about the drawing, and I do that with him sometimes, especially when it comes to the conflict with his brother, and how, it's just constant fighting, or that he wants his things. Like, draw how angry you are about your brother, which I really wouldn't have thought. I wouldn't want to reiterate the negative feeling, but it's so important to validate those feelings. And I have to admit, I'm only about 50 to 60% of the time successful in identifying them, and the rest of the time I'm just frustrated, like any other parent. But even when you talk about feelings, I think it is so important to just say that it doesn't even matter what age. I mean, my 2-year-old, who doesn't say a whole lot of words, says to me sometimes, "Frustrated, mommy."
Oh,
frustrated. And I think that's because he has an older brother. But they understand. Those conversations about feelings are so essential.
Yes, you nailed it. And they understand everything. I mean, they are like sponges. They're absorbing everything from their environment. sometimes, I mean, back in the day when I used to work with really younger ones, I trained at Children's Hospital. I remember telling, we had interns there, and I would tell them, okay, watch the behavior. We had this like glass screen. I said, watch the behavior of the child and then observe the behavior with the parent. You will notice a parallel, right? And we often say, wow, do I talk like my mother? Do I react like my other parent? And that's just us being self-aware of how we are speaking and our tone of voice and how loud we are or how calm we are. And Lynn, at the end of the day, we're human. We can't be, there's no such thing as perfection. I always say we're going to make mistakes. I certainly make mistakes. I own to that all the time. This is part of the learning curve. It doesn't mean that I'm a psychologist, that I'll be that parent who's always going to do it right. No, this is the beauty of life, is we go into that where we have different children with different personalities. What one thing may work with your 5-year-old, right, may not work with the 2-year-old. So you had something that you did really great, which was I stepped back, I paid attention, and I saw what was going on. And now I have to find a solution. So for each parent is at that age, again, going down on the floor. Do I get on the floor with my 13-year-old? Yeah, I do sometimes. If she's just, sitting there, I will lower my body stance to be at eye level with her. Or I always tell parents, don't yell across the house. Take your time and walk in front of them and get the eye contact, because they're not hearing you half the time. It's not that they're ignoring you. I know I'm looking at the
I am too.
I have lost 50% of my hair. Oh yeah.
I get just the stress on parents when you're dealing with those types of children. I can relate. I mean, sometimes you feel like this kid's going to give me a heart attack. I know my husband says that sometimes, and I was like, don't you dare, don't leave me with these two.
Yeah.
I was like, you cannot die of a heart attack. I need your help.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
It's really hard.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, look, I'm telling this to everybody, are we meant to be in the home for this many hours in a day and for this long? Yeah. I mean, look how resilient we all have been as mothers, as parents, as caregivers. Big hats off getting out of this. This is how I see it, because this has been the hardest thing, I think, on anyone, on any family, from all directions. I mean, you're working, you're on Zoom, and then you have your kid asking you for work, help me with my homework. You got to do laundry, you got to cook. I mean, let's be realistic. We're working more now than ever. So of course there's that exhaustion. I don't blame that parent. I feel for you.
Yeah, and I can relate to you.
And I can relate to that. But it's all about that stepping back feel. Redirection is one of the powerful things you can do as a parent, which is, they're having a tantrum and you just redirect them to something else. You don't really engage in that behavior, because I always say, when kids are frustrated and anxious, I love that word, frustrated, right?
Frustrated.
I'm frustrated. When they're feeling like that, really what it is mommy, daddy, I need attention. Help me here. That's what they're really trying to say. Even as teenagers, when they're locked in their room, don't leave them in their room all day. Bug them, check in, go give them a hug, say, how are you? How can I help you? What help do you need? Oh, and parents will say, well, they constantly kick me out of the room. I said, that's okay. Go back in and check in, because that shows your presence. There's nothing more powerful than your presence, and just keep on checking. Don't give up. So
I think also in those teen angst years, when you say, they'll kick you out of your room, it's hard as a parent not to take that personally.
Yeah.
And I know I have a friend whose daughter, and she's in her teen years, and she's really struggling. And we talked about it. And it's just, you just die inside a little bit when your kids are struggling so much. So how do we resist the temptation to say, oh my gosh, I failed. I'm not doing a good enough job. I'm not helping them enough.
Yes. And that's being hard on yourself as a parent, right? Because you feel like that's a reflection of yourself. I go back to the uniqueness. So, if we go into that place of negativity and blaming ourselves for how our children are reacting, are we going to find a solution? Most likely we won't. So it's all about stepping back and saying, you know what, I'm having a hard time right now with this. I'm talking about parent self-care too. Go outside, go for a run, take a deep breath, and then revisit. And I go back to the constant checking. Special time is huge. Sit down with your teen and say, I want to spend more time with you. I know it's so hard in the house. There's, your siblings around. There's all this chaos or all this commotion going on day to day. I really want to spend some time with you. Let's go for a run. I mean, I have a 15-year-old, almost 16. And this is something like we have our Sundays and it's an hour, and I'm a mom of 3, and she melts for this. This is her thing. And she's like, let's go for a run, or let's go walk together, or, let's go have lunch together, whatever it is. And I think we have to pay attention to that and make the time, even if it's an hour, and do it for each child. So Lynn, even for your 5-year-old and 2-year-old, same thing as mommy special time. And even if it's spending 10 minutes in the backyard with them, or taking, out, for a walk, whatever it is, it's still that time just for you, because that's what they want. They don't really care what we're doing together. They just want to be in your presence, free of screens, free of distractions. I say, leave everything in the car or leave it at home. You don't need it. Be present, because you don't want to be doing this, being on your phone and then being with your child, or having lunch, and then it defeats the purpose, because they want to feel like they are the only thing in the world and they have all your undivided attention.
And I love that you point out naming it. That's something I've heard in parenting classes so often. You name that time. Like you say, this is mommy and Lachlan time, and that they almost, that then they have something to look forward to, and that it doesn't have to be an hour even. I love that you point out it can only be 10 minutes. We all have 10 minutes. And if you just take a moment and say that this is something they need so badly, and you see a result from that small amount of time, it can be really fulfilling. What is Team Project Rise? I saw you post a lot about this, and I was interested on what it was.
Oh my gosh. So Lynn, just like you, I love how you brought up at the beginning, solutions. And it really ties in everything you talked about today. So we are in a mental health crisis, and we need solutions for our kids returning to school. So part of my, not only am I a clinical psychologist, but I also do assessments. So I assess for ADHD and learning disabilities, etc. So I'm in the schools quite often, and I advocate a lot for children. So you'll find me, I'll be in a room, I'm advocating for the parent, I have the teachers around, and I'm usually teaching teachers, what does ADHD look like in the classroom? What does anxiety look like in the classroom? This is how you can support this child. So that's the premise. With this mental health crisis, we are, it just came together. We're a group of women. We have a legislator from DC. She's an attorney on our team, psychologist. We have other educators with 30 plus years experience. It's a great group of us. And we wrote a proposal for Congress. We are actually mandating, we're requesting for a national mandate to make mental health training for teachers mandatory upon returning to the classroom. So the idea is, look, we're going to start slow. This is not going to be a quick fix, but at least it's going to be something to start off. So just like teachers have sexual harassment training, diversity training, they have to go through child abuse training at the beginning of the year. It's usually virtual. It's 2 to 3 hours. We are proposing the same thing, is for teachers to get some mental health training. Now, what does that look like? What are some of the symptoms kids may present in the classroom? What can you do as a teacher? Because we really feel that teachers are going to be like first responders. Teachers also are not sure what it's going to feel like. We're in LA, so LAUSD has not opened up. The private schools have opened up. And you could see, honestly, based on what I've been observing, teachers are scared, they're anxious. Some haven't been vaccinated, they're back in the classroom. Some have sick parents they have to take care of, or an elderly. So it's, think about it, that the teachers are going to be anxious and having their own issues and own mental health stressors. And I always say, you have to take care of yourself first before you can take care of anyone else, right? So in this case, it's just really going to help them. So we did a survey, And we interviewed teachers. We asked them what they thought, and the results were overwhelming, positive. 90% of teachers said they don't have mental health training. They said they are very lost and don't know how to deal with post-COVID stressors when kids return. And what are post-COVID stressors? Well, lack of motivation, decrease in concentration, so it's going to be even higher. Social anxiety. The hypochondriacs returning with the fear of getting sick. Oh, don't touch me, go away. And then this is going to manifest in aggressive behavior. So we're going to see more aggression. So this is just, we're saying it's mandatory. It's such a necessity. So that's what Team Project Rise is. So we're working hard, Lynn. Thank you for even giving me this platform to talk about it.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, and the people can go to your Instagram page if they want to sign the petition for Team Project Rise, because I think every single parent knows how beneficial that would be for their child if they have that resource in the classroom, if they have that education with these teachers. It is just absolutely essential. I have loved talking with you. Thank you for reaching out.
Thank you.
I actually am going to reach out to you to see if we can do some segments for Morning Express also, because I just think that you're a great resource. You're a wealth of information, and it's so important for parents to get this kind of education. It's what All Good Things is about, and I just really appreciate you being with me.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. I appreciate you giving me this platform. And yes, I feel like just like the Marshall Plan for Moms, this is all together. If we come together, even as moms and parents and caregivers, and sign this, it helps us, because now as we walk into Senator's office and Congress people, we can show them, look, there is a demand for this. So please, thank you. Yes, for that.
Oh, absolutely. I posted on International Women's Day yesterday that you just don't know how amazing women are until you see how they step up when they're needed. And this is stepping up. And thank you for doing that for our children. I really appreciate it. Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Lynn.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you.